Hi everyone, welcome to an Audio Developer Conference 2024 workshop teaser. My name is Jan Wilczek and I'm the founder of the Ulsan blog and YouTube channel on audio programming. And today I'm happy to introduce you to the leaders of the ADC workshop on inclusive design, Jay Pocknell and Tim Yates. Hi guys, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello. I'll jump in first if that's okay. So my name's Jay Pocknell. I'm wearing kind of two hats as part of this workshop, really. One, as part of my work at RNIB, the Royal National Institute of Blind People, where I am the music support officer. So at RNIB, we support blind and partially sighted musicians across the board. So it might be people who are in education, accessing music for the first time. It might be people who are wanting to progress into a career in music or sound. It might be people who have maybe done those things their whole lives, but now they're losing their sight later on and need to find ways around certain barriers. So that's my RNIB work. I also run a non-profit project called Sound Without Sight, which is an online community hub for blind and partially sighted musicians and audio engineers. So I'm also here, I guess, representing that community, but also very much wanting to feed back and involve that community as much as possible. So yeah, I'll be chairing the workshop along with Tim Yates.
Awesome. So Tim, what about you then?
Hi, I'm Tim Yates. So I work for a charity called Drake Music. We are a charity that works at the intersection of music, technology and disability, generally supporting disabled musicians to make music. I run the research and innovation program there. So I'm particularly interested in accessible instruments and accessible music technology, trying to make sure that everybody has an instrument that they can play. Where they don't, trying to find ways to develop new instruments and make sure that in general music tech is accessible to everyone as far as it can possibly be.
Awesome. And when it comes to inclusivity, at the Audio Developer Conference 2024, you are going to lead a workshop on inclusive design. So could you briefly explain what the workshop will be about?
Yeah, so it's going to be quite a wide-ranging workshop, all based around the topics of inclusive design and accessibility within audio and music tech. So we'll look basically at the three main pillars of that, which is the kind of what that means, why it's important, and how to do it. So yeah, we'll spend a bit of time on the first two of those, and the bulk of the workshop would be on how to engage with accessibility and inclusive design. Because I mean, something that we've found working in this space is that it can be quite an overwhelming topic. Everyone's aware that they would like to be inclusive and accessible, but often it's difficult to know where to start with that and where to go for advice and support and what that means for different communities. So yeah, we've got a workshop where we are bringing together third sector organisations like RNIB, Sound Without Sight and Drake Music with disabled musicians who can speak about their experience. So we have Elizabeth J. Birch, incredible electronic musician, Andre Louis, who is an amazing accessibility consultant and musician himself, with developers. So we've chosen two developers who have been making really big waves in the accessible music space over the last year, Ableton and Arcana, to speak about their experience of involving the community in development. And yeah, we'll focus on a few topics, all based around accessibility and inclusive design.
Awesome. Tim, would you mind adding your 2 cents to what Jay already said?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Jay's covered it all pretty well. I mean, I think we're going to be talking about perhaps some of the approaches that you can take in terms of the way you approach the design at the early stages in order to make things more accessible. We're going to talk a little bit about some kind of obvious gotchas, things that often go wrong and don't, and are actually reasonably easy fixes, and everything in between. Really, I think a lot of it is going to be about the relationship between the musicians and the people who make the products, and making sure that works more effectively than sometimes it does now, and also making sure that there are a few kind of headline things that are always useful, always are going to be beneficial to a large number of people, and making sure that kind of knowledge is out there a bit more than it currently is.
Awesome. So as you mentioned, the workshop will be hosted by a larger group of people. So I wanted to ask, what are your specific responsibilities during the workshop? So maybe Jay, please.
Yeah, so I feel very lucky and very privileged to be kind of chairing the workshop. So I'll be doing the initial intros, leading us through the session, and doing the Q&A at the end. Wherever I feel like I can, contributing experience from my time at RNIB and Sound Without Sight. I guess representing, blind and partially sighted musicians and audio engineers as much as possible. Not pretending that I know everything on behalf of that community, but I guess that's my specialist area. So that's me.
Okay, what about you, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be doing a similar thing. I'm hoping that it will be a fairly conversational kind of a session. Again, nobody has all the answers to any of these things. It's always a case of listening and sharing what you know. But I'll share a little bit from my perspective. I have a reasonably broad overview of a lot of the different areas and challenges that people face. Some of the ways that we work that we know that work really well to provide solutions that are successful, and trying to bring that kind of knowledge and that kind of way of working into perhaps a wider practice in the audio tech industry.
Okay. And so you've mentioned it a little bit already, but I wanted to ask, is there something that you can specifically name as a concrete learning that someone will take away with them from the workshop? So Tim, is there something that comes to your mind, specifically?
Yes, I think there is. I think the most important thing is if people walk away with confidence to be able to address these issues where previously they might not have had that confidence. That's, I think, what we mostly want to achieve with this. It can seem daunting, but it needn't be daunting. And actually, it's a very rewarding and thought-provoking experience to work in this kind of area. And hopefully, if people walk away with the confidence to try, that's the biggest takeaway that I think we'd like.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think some really kind of practical starting points for where to go and the points at which to develop on from for accessibility. So I think there would be a section in the middle where we look at what are some of the key areas, maybe around 5 areas that people can look at and use those to push on from, those kind of points of traction, really, just to help it be a little less overwhelming. Very keen to have those practical takeaways. Okay,
awesome. And do you have any specific workshop audience in mind? So is there any group you could specify that the workshop is for?
So we've designed the workshop to be open to everyone, really, because in a way, no one is the absolute expert across all kinds of accessibility. We want it to be applicable to everyone. We have kind of designed it thinking that our main audience will be audio developers, but also musicians as well, and anyone who is designing audio tech. We would love to be there. It's not specifically designed at or designed for really, really experienced developers, but I think we're not going to be delving into too much code and stuff like that. But I still think the principles will be applicable to anyone, however experienced they are.
Okay. Tim, do you agree, or would you add someone to this group?
No, I agree. I mean, I think it's also a really important part of it is for the people who come to meet each other as well, and for us to maybe learn who are the people that need more information. What is that information? Feedback from the audio developer community back into the work that we do is also really valuable. So I think in that respect, at least, everybody's welcome, and any questions are valid and on the table.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think we are going to have an amazing panel, and we want everyone who comes to put us to work as well. So we're going to have a solid chunk at the end for open Q&A, because we want to learn as much as our attendees as well, about where people are getting stuck, and hopefully we can just have a few really good conversations like we started at the session last year. It's the natural kind of successor to that. So just on the point around, I guess, solid takeaways as well. We haven't really spoken too much about our 2 kind of feature sessions within the workshop. So we have 2 30-minute slots where we are featuring 2 developers who've been doing really good work over the last year or so, and we pick them based on feedback from the community of what has been super effective. So firstly, focusing on Ableton and how they have really shifted their development practices to design a lot more alongside the community. So looking particularly at the new Ableton Move, but also how they redeveloped Live 12 with accessibility in mind, and a little bit on Ableton Note as well. And then the second of those slots, focusing on Arcana and their first instrument, the Arcana Strum, and the process of developing that over the last couple of years. And yeah, they've done such a great job with involving the community and prototyping. So yeah.
Yeah, so I've seen the instrument, and it's super interesting, and the way that they thought about designing particular pieces, and the possibility to change particular elements, and so on, so on. So I think it will be also a very valuable feature of the session. And I'm glad that you mentioned last year workshop, which in my opinion was a huge success at the Audio Developer 2023. And on that note, I wanted to ask, because in the description of this year's workshop on inclusive design, you're saying that it's a natural follow-up. So my question comes, is it a prerequisite to have been at the previous year's session? Or apart from this, are there any other prerequisite that the attendees need to fulfill in terms of knowledge or tools that they bring with them?
I think last year's workshop would be a good thing to check out beforehand. It's not a prerequisite, but I think in terms of the wider context and how we got to framing this year's workshop in this way, I think it would be really useful. So last year was much broader. So we had updates from all across the industry, all different developers, manufacturers talking about what they've been doing in terms of accessibility over the last few years. I guess the feedback we got was that was super interesting, but it was very wide. So this year it's much deeper, focusing on, okay, what are the principles that everyone has been working on? What are the kind of key takeaways there? And yeah, focusing quite deeply on Ableton and Arcana, and having that solid chunk of time at the end of the session for Q&A as well. So yeah, it would be great to check out last year's session. We're not going to cover much of that. So yeah, if you're interested in this area, definitely do check that out. And we did a slightly similar session at the NAMM show as well. So yeah, that's online if you search for. So that was sponsored by the Media Association. So yeah, Media Association Accessibility Workshop at NAMM. There's a little half-hour session there as well.
Okay, we'll definitely put the links to it in the description.
Amazing.
So Tim, is there anything other that you think the attendees should bring with them?
No, I mean, I suppose, Jay's covered it really well there. There's one of the issues in this area is that it's enormously broad, and so we've got material to cover for many years to come, and there's no prerequisites. But I think what I would encourage is anybody who is already working in this area, who has an interesting feature that they think they're adding to their hardware, to their software, to come along and talk about it and share it with us and share it with a group of people. Because I think one of the things that I find is almost everywhere that I go, there are people working in this area and doing really new, cool and exciting stuff. And one of the issues is that sometimes it's often siloed and people don't know about it, even within the community. And so I'd really welcome people who have cool, interesting stuff that they're working on to bring it, share it with the group, and so we can join some of the dots that aren't currently being joined.
Yeah, I would also say, if you're interested in the workshop, in the links, in the information about the session, there's links to Elizabeth J. Birch and Andre Louis, their work, and I would love for people to check that out, and maybe come with some questions for Elizabeth and Andre as well, because they're great at what they do, and yeah, super happy to have them involved in the session.
Awesome. Thank you both. Thank you, Jay and Tim, for sharing information on your workshop. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing you at ADC 2024. And to all the viewers, don't forget to check out the workshop on inclusive design. It's available both in person and online. So see you there. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Jan. Very much looking forward to it, and I hope to see many people at the workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.